Hi everyone, this is Unit 2, Lesson 7, Applications of Subtracting Rational Numbers. So ways that we can apply or where we see subtracting in real life. Okay, and the numbers aren't always going to be whole numbers. More often than not, they're going to be rational numbers. So they could be fractions, they could be decimals, they could be positive, they could be negative, they could be whole numbers, right? It just varies. So some examples of places in the real world where you see using subtraction, usually you're finding the change in something. You're finding the difference in something. Difference means subtraction. You probably remember that from younger grade levels, right? Talking about words that mean different operations. So difference means subtraction. So temperature change. Finding the temperature change between one day to the next, or morning to afternoon, things like that. A change in time or a change in distance. Also, one place that some of you might be interested in would be like sports games, right? Comparing the scores in different games, whether it's like for the same team from one game to the next, or just comparing, saying, the team that won scored 7 points more, right? Then you would have used subtraction to find that difference between the scores. And then also comparing prices and things. Doesn't matter what you do in life, if you deal with money, which we all have to, okay, you're going to be comparing prices of things. All right? So, let's see here. Some examples. There's lots of information in your lesson today, so go through all of that. Make sure you take your time, take notes, but I've got 3 examples for you here. These are taken from your practice on, page 24, holy moly, you have a lot of pages today, or your quick check on page 25. So number 1, Mark had a balance of negative $11 in his account. Okay, oof, that's rough. That means he spent too much money. He has less than $0 in his account. The bank charged a $25 fee. So sometimes banks do that where they'll charge an overdraft fee. That's what that's called, an overdraft fee. You use too much money, now you owe us extra, so we're going to charge you even more. That's what they do, okay? What is the balance in the account? So this is a great example of why it's important to budget your money too. So let's see here. He was at negative 11, and then now they charged him $25 more than that. So in this case, right, we could say he's at negative $11 minus $25 more dollars. Okay? So hopefully by now we've practiced this enough to where you recognize that we're actually combining those, right? Where he's at negative 11 and then they charged him that much more, so now how much does he owe them all together? Well, if we combine these two numbers, 11 plus 25 is 36, but because it's overdraft, because it's already in the negatives, it's going to stay negative. Okay? So, being that we know what the numbers are about, also, it's important to put your unit. So you could say negative $36. Okay? Okay, this one I know is taken directly from your quick check. Let me think. It's number, at least on my list, it's number 2 from your quick check. So this is more of, we're not solving anything, but we're thinking about the words and what they mean and what scenario we would use them in best. Okay? So which scenario about books represents finding the difference? There's that word difference. Okay? That means subtraction. So we need to think to ourselves, which one of these things would we use subtraction to find the answer? Finding the types of books in a store. That probably doesn't have anything to do with subtraction, right? There might be science fiction books, there's fantasy, there's historical fiction, there's, right? So we're just counting up. That doesn't involve subtraction. So I'm going to say no to A. For B, finding the location of a book in a store. So, like when I go to Target and I'm looking for something and it'll say, oh, it's in aisle A6, right? There's no subtraction there. It's just finding it on a map. Okay? Option C, finding the total number of books in a store when new books arrive. Total this usually means to add, right? If you're combining everything, you're adding everything up, you're finding the total, not subtraction. You're not finding the difference. Well, that leaves us with D. Hopefully that's the right answer, right? Finding the number of books remaining after a sale. So maybe they started out with 100 books, and after the sale, they're left with 30. Well, 100 minus 30 is 70, right? That means they sold 70 books. There's our subtraction. So that one is going to be finding the difference. Okay? All right, last one. This is number 5, or at least for me on the quick check, it's number 5. Okay? I figured this one, it adds a little more complexity, so I thought we should go through it together. A parasail is 1/20th of a kilometer above the water. Then after 10 minutes, the parasail is 1/50th of a kilometer above the water. What is the difference in height? Okay, so there's a few things I want us to really pay attention to. One, what is the actual question, right? What is the difference in height? Difference in height. So those are the values that I need to pay attention to. I need to pay attention to the difference in height. Well, so does it matter that it's a parasail? Not really, and you might be like, well, what on earth is a parasail anyway? It's like, have you ever seen the, maybe if you've gone to the beach, maybe you've seen them there. That's a pretty common place to see it, where you get strapped in and you have like a parachute behind you, or like a parasail, right? And you get pulled behind a boat and you go up in the air, right? That's parasailing. So that's where like it's talking about the distance above the water. Okay, hopefully you're not below the water on a parasail. That would be very dangerous. But so it's 1/20th of a kilometer. So it kind of matters that it's a kilometer, not for the operation that we're going to do, but for our final answer, right? Because we want to add that unit in there. We know what the numbers are referring to. So 1/20th, right? But I'm going to cross this out because it doesn't really matter that it's a parasail. Doesn't matter. Okay? This does matter. Right, I'm going to change my color. This does matter. It's 1/20th of a kilometer above the water. Above tells me it's a positive value. Okay? Then after 10 minutes, well, it doesn't really matter that it was after 10 minutes. Okay? So I'm going to cross that out too. It doesn't matter because I'm just worried about the height. I'm not worried about minutes or time right now. Okay? Again, doesn't really matter that it's a parasail. Ooh, but it does matter that after those 10 minutes, it's now 1/50th of a kilometer above the water. Okay? So there's my two values. These are the two values that I need to actually solve the problem. Okay? So I know I'm looking for the height, and I'm looking for the difference between those two numbers. Okay? So, I'm going to close my pen so I don't dry them out. So 1/20th minus 1/50th. Okay? So, let's see here. With this, we want to make sure that we have them in the right order. Okay? Which, first, I'm not positive that I do right now. Right? I'm not positive that I do. First thing, and so maybe I shouldn't even set this up. I'm not going to set that up quite yet. The first thing, if I'm subtracting these, I need to know, okay, well, like we've done in the past, we need to find a common denominator. I can't subtract anything until I have a common denominator. So we need to think to ourselves, okay, well, can 20 go into 50? No, not evenly, right? So I can't just use one of the other denominators to find the common one. I need to actually find one for both of them. So If you can think of a number that they both go into, awesome. You could also like kind of write a list. You could say, you could count by 20s. You could go 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, and so on. And do the same with the 50s. 50, 100, 150. Oh, look at that. There's my matching one. Okay? Can't always do that. Worst case, multiplying by each other. But we don't need to do that in this case, right? They have a common denominator, or this is called the least common multiple. Okay, so now I need to think to myself, all right, well, what can I multiply 20 by to get to 100? 5. Whatever I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. Okay, so that's going to give me, let's see, 1 times 5 is 5. 20 times 5 is 100. Okay. Well, what do I need to multiply 50 by to get to 100? 2, right? That was my second one. Times 2. Whatever I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. 50 times 100. No, just kidding. 50 times 2 is 100. Okay? And look at that. They were in the right order already. So we can go ahead and subtract them. Okay, 5 hundredths minus 2 hundredths gives me 3 hundredths. Okay, not done yet though. I know that my numbers are referring to kilometers, so I have to put that in my answer. You could either write out the entire word, or the abbreviation for kilometers is km. Okay, I hope that helps. And otherwise, don't forget, you can always come to my live lesson room from 12 to 12:30 as well, and you can always get some extra help there. All right, talk to you soon.